crazy Contra?
Hello, Internet. I'm not sure any of you realize how little I want to actually be doing this right now, but it looks like we're going to have a bit of discourse about Contrapoints. Seriously, I think all of this drama posting is ridiculous, and I wish that a working class movement would show a little bit of solidarity and quit eating itself, but here we are. Contrapoint's latest video is a magnum opus of feature-length proportion. As a person who has said on stream that I haven't much enjoyed her recent videos, even though I still think they're pretty decent, I feel like this is a true return to form for her as a creator, and I wholly enjoyed it. And I think that in the hour and 40 minutes of its content, there are a lot of good points that might be missed by people who simply feel like they don't have the time or don't have the patience to deal with it. So I'm going to do my best to get into it in a shorter form, although I'm going to be clipping heavily from her video and adding my own thoughts, so...
What up, folks? So my basic take on the Contrapoints cancellation or canceling video and on some of the backlash that it's gotten is that non-binary, for a lot of us, myself included, is more of the negation of identification and identity formation put up on its liberal pedestal and all of its individualism. It's a negation of all of that. And like, I know myself and several other people don't like this whole like identity branding game that so many people make it into. We don't come out against it because, you know, you do you. But when you doing you makes it so that you need to attack Contrapoints for saying something that doesn't hurt any of us, or when it means taking the side of the 37-year-old white woman who was calling out and bullying James Charles, the 17-year-old gay boy.
This probably isn't going to be short either, and it's going to be a real test of my patience. But this is effectively my job, and as jobs are, they aren't always the things that we wish we were doing, even when we get to choose our own career. So I guess, a bottle of red wine in hand, let's get into it.
Alright, no one thinks I'm cute. Let's get started.
Are you crazy Contra?
Contrapoints got so many of us into so many different things. She's a really important person to so many of us. You know, I don't like to do big stands for her because she's not beyond critique, but she's not fucking killing us like people are saying. And her not blurring out profile pictures of her harassers is important, because if you have those people in your circles, you need to know who the fuck they are. And people are like, oh, you can reverse image search. Yeah, her entire audience of 800,000 people aren't reverse image searching though. All right? It's ridiculous. Shame on anybody who tries to act as though these things are comparable. She is the most prominent, most upfront, visible trans woman on the internet, and therefore has more going on behind the scenes, more harassment than she's able to talk about than anyone else. So shut the f up.
Here's the thing. What if you're not James Charles? What if you're a small creator? What if you can't afford public relations help? What if you belong to a marginalized community and you rely on that community for support? Well, in that case, it's a whole different story.
Let's talk about Contrapoints canceling to begin with.
The reason for my current cancellation is, in summary, that in my last video, Opulence, I cast transsexual porn star Buck Angel in the role of John Waters.
One thing that I quickly got sick of in the initial canceling of Contrapoints over the video Opulence was a whole bunch of well-meaning cis allies trying to tell me as an NB how I should feel about how Contrapoints addresses the non-binary folks in her audience, or in the world in general. As a person who has probably seen every Contrapoints video all the way through at some point in my YouTube career, I don't think that these claims hold water, period. It's kinda dumb.
Let's Irish up this tea. Doesn't work as well with tea. So, Setting aside any tabloid drama that may have happened during the Bush administration, I'm saying this in the funniest way, and they deserve it. They deserve the The main argument against me usually references a collage of Buck Angel's problematic tweets. And this is supposed to be definitive evidence that he is a horrible person, and therefore, that I am a horrible person for collaborating with him. Well, here's the thing though. A collage of problematic tweets does not define a person. And I'm very used to being defined that way myself, so I know how unfair it can be. Before I ever collaborated with Buck Angel, a lot of people on Twitter were already calling me true scum. That's been going on a year and a half now. And anytime my name comes up on Twitter, a bunch of people respond saying Natalie is true scum, Natalie's a trans medicalist, Natalie hates non-binary people, and you should really think what kind of message you're sending to your trans and non-binary followers by platforming her.
Or when you reify the idea that people are straight and queer or gay. Like when you just reify that's a rigid thing, you're thinking within the terms of identity. You're not thinking in the terms of like what are those things actually? Those things are on the move. So when I think of non-binary, I think of like the heteronormative matrix of intelligibility, the standard that people take for granted and use to implicitly judge and compare everyone else to. Okay. When I think about that, I think that like people internalize it really deeply. And I don't think that you're going to get anywhere going around scolding people for thinking their thoughts out loud about it if they're not being bigots.
Her feelings on non-binary folks and how she supports them. One which comes to mind is probably my favorite Contrapoints video of all times, Trans Trenders, which really attacks the problem from multiple perspectives in a well thought out way. I find it hard not to believe that a lot of these people, or at least the originators of these claims, aren't bad actors. I think that a lot of people just kind of caught on with the trend and saw the things that were going on, the clips, the out of context tweets, and well-meaning as they are, fed into that drama cycle. It's very easy, by the way, to take an out-of-context clip of a video. For better or for worse, we see this all the time with Vosh, and I'm not going to get too deep into Vosh in this because this is a video first and foremost about the Contrapoints discourse, but while I don't particularly like Vosh's content either in format or in presentation, because I feel like he overplays toxic masculinity, and I really wish he wouldn't because it rubs me the wrong way, I don't think that he's necessarily worthy of canceling. And whenever I see a drama post thread about him, I see the same clips over and over again, some of which I have seen in context and realize that they are either set up to be sarcastic or tongue-in-cheek representations of the type of people that he rallies against in his video. But that nuance and context isn't well represented within these clips, and it seems that people who just want to get some social media clout by taking down a big personality are using these clips in order to gain more following, get more views. It is all about social capital, I am sure, at least in the beginning. At least for the people who originate these claims and perpetuate them with the most veracity. I think a lot of people get caught up in that, a lot of very well-meaning people, and we need to be a little bit more critical of how our information is sourced, and we need to do more of our due diligence in checking the context of the clips that we base our assumptions on about the creators that are working within our spaces. To take things back to Contrapoints, as you may know, she was recently, quote-unquote, canceled, which really just means that she got so much harassment in such a short period of time on Twitter that for her own mental health, so that she wouldn't go into a dark place after having hundreds, if not thousands of people send angry posts or threats to friends and associates of hers, that she felt the need to get off Twitter entirely. And what came of that is the video that we will be discussing today, in which she makes some very good points They take a bit of time to get out there, and she builds them slowly, so it's not an easy watch, and I'll try to condense a few of those as best as possible. One thing that she points out is the problem within this idea that not only should someone be canceled for these out-of-context things, but that anyone who so much as follows them should be canceled as well, just for providing them a platform or whatever the rationalization they may make is. And she lays out in the video why this is a bad idea over a series of anecdotes about how her opening herself up to conversations with people who do not believe as she does, who believe things that may even be abhorrent to her or objectionable to her life personally.
Let's go back to Buck Angel. I'm kind of a conscientious objector to the practice of condemning someone based on a collage of their worst tweets taken out of context.
You want to try to compare that to anonymous harassers and try to protect their fucking identities? Shame. Shame, shame, shame. Shame, 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 shame. I don't normally come out here and turn on cameras to start talking shame, shame, shame this, shame that. But y'all make it like it's not even worth it. Y'all make it like it's not even worth doing the kind of stuff that she does. Like, you know, you seriously gonna put so much heat and hatred, venom. You're gonna put so much seething hatred and venom towards a person so many of us care about because they crossed over with a person who the most that you should honestly say about Buck Angel is, okay, boomer. Fucking boomer. He's a fucking boomer. Move on. Move the fuck on. But instead we have people who are like, oh no, this is gonna kill us. It's like,
it's just when I listen to these arguments about why we shouldn't go on Fox, why we shouldn't go on Tucker Carlson, notwithstanding that he has by far the largest audience of any cable news host in the country. I try and listen, I try and understand the claims, and it comes off like sounding like a crazy person when I listen to people who are making that argument. Like, there's 4 million people over there, and you have the choice to either communicate with them and convince them of the things you believe,
exactly,
or just refuse to talk to them on the grounds that they might think things differently than you, and forever cede the opportunity to have a channel of communication where you can actually convince, I don't know, 5%, 10%, which is a huge number of people, to be open to the things that you think.
do you understand that with his popularity, that so many people were coming to Contrapoints for the first time? People who were probably like normies, more or less. Maybe like they were a bit transmedicalist or true scum, maybe. But instead of seeing, oh, this is the better left, or this is the better liberal, like, gender position, instead people are like, oh my god, what a dumpster fire of resentful, bitter, ego-tripping maniacs who think that they can hold someone accountable who they don't even know. If you don't like her, move the on. See if you can do something better. Stop harassing her like she's a fucking Chick-fil-A.
But I definitely do have anxiety about this. Like, I think I'm doing the right thing by not condemning Buck as true scum and evil, but I mean, I could be wrong. What if I am basically sacrificing myself for the sake of a person who really is as bad as Twitter says? Maybe tomorrow he'll tweet binary people, and then I'll have up. This whole thing is incredibly stressful to me, but I do believe that by refusing to participate in the anti-Buck Angel pile-on, I am erring on the morally safer side of things. Because even if he is a little true scummy, excommunicating him from the trans community is still probably not the best approach to take. In my experience, when people accept binary but not non-binary trans people, it usually takes like a 30-minute conversation to win them over to some level of non-binary acceptance, and I'll give you a couple examples. The first time I was ever canceled, like totally trashed on Twitter, was back in 2017, when I had not yet medically transitioned, and at the time, I identified as non-binary. And at VidCon 2017, I met up with a YouTuber named June, who had made some videos where she basically mocked the idea of non-binary people. And I posted a picture of the brunch I had with June and some other people, but let's keep them out of it. And people on Twitter totally dragged me for being a peak liberal bootlicker who's best friends with transphobic abusers. Christ. People, man. It's so frustrating. And, you know, I'm not gonna claim I changed June's mind because I don't know what her thought process was, but I did talk to her about non-binary identity, and she did remove her anti-non-binary videos. And I don't have any regrets about that brunch.
With all of that out of the way, demonstrating how keeping these open lines of communication is really the only way that we can hope to achieve change and outreach, which is something that our movement desperately needs to do better at if we are to grow it to a true working class movement that has any real ability to enact a political revolution, which is something that I have advocated for before in many of my videos. We need to be able to do outreach. We cannot do outreach if we are willy-nilly canceling anybody for the people that they may, even through some game of 6 degrees of separation support. Contrapoints lays this problem out with her example of Buck Angel and his inclusion in the video Opulence. People want to cancel Contrapoints for including Buck Angel, and then they want to cancel anyone who is even friends with Contrapoints for not disowning her. And then they want to cancel anyone who even follows Friends of Contrapoints because those Friends of Contrapoints didn't denounce her. And if you follow someone who didn't denounce her for not denouncing him, then you are obviously a part of the problem too. We see how this, using the transitive property, can be made to treat people as if they are something as abhorrent as Nazis. And this is clearly no way to build a movement. This is no way to organize. But another problem that I have, and this came up in a rather aggravating Facebook exchange with someone who is well-meaning, but had never seen a Contrapoints video before, was not familiar with her before this whole controversy happened on Twitter, and hasn't even watched the full cancel video, but was very opinionated on it, which seems to be a trend here. I came across this clip.
My experiences have made me so disillusioned with the idea that social media callouts can lead to any kind of justice that I've essentially sworn off participating in them. There's a fairly prominent figure in leftist politics who I could absolutely #MeToo, but I'm never gonna do it because I have no faith left in the process of call-out vigilante justice.
Now, if you want the real context of this, it takes about 13 minutes to get it out. But I really recommend you watch the entire video to understand why she said this. In particular, the period of time between 1 hour and 1 hour and 13 minutes is probably most important. But let me summarize by saying this. That whole 6 degrees of cancellation that I just laid into, I can completely understand why she wouldn't want to encourage this reaction. It's very much like, to bring in some modern politics into this as a metaphor, while you may hate the particular Iranian general that Trump killed in a drone strike for the abhorrent things that he has done, you have to realize that in the way that we did this, in the way that we went about assassinating him, there will be ramifications. There will be ramifications of those ramifications. There will be a 6 degrees of separation style repercussions of this action that we must consider before acting. And I think that that is very much what she is getting at here when she says that she chooses not to disclose the particular abuser that she obliquely mentions in this video. But she also goes on to point out that perhaps this abuse wasn't even that important.
I'm kind of a conscientious objector to the practice of condemning someone based on a collage of their worst tweets taken out of context.
It can be easy in just seeing this short clip on the internet, which, by the way, is garnering a lot of social capital for the person who posted it. It can be very easy for us to let our imaginations run wild and imagine that Natalie was raped or something to this effect. But from the way that she frames it, this doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't seem to be something that she even thinks is all that serious. And even if it was, she is, as many of my leftist comrades have noted about the particular Iranian general that I mentioned earlier, considering the ramifications of the course of action that she is denying here. And yet, many people who have not seen the video seem to have some very strong opinions about this particular clip. Furthermore, as a fellow content creator, I would like to point out that even with the large viewer base that Contrapoints has, the amount of money that she is likely making after paying rent, after paying for a team to work on her videos, she's not a wealthy individual, I can assure you. She's not some celebrity like we would traditionally imagine.
What if you're not James Charles?
And that's something to keep in mind when you're sending her hate, because when thousands of you do so, for anyone, that has to take an outstanding toll on your mental health. Do you really want to be a part of the thousands of voices that lead to someone's suicide? Do you want to do that? And if you do, if you can still say that some people maybe should kill themselves because they are that horrible, I'm not going to argue with you in this video. I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to argue with you on that on this video. But I want you to consider that with that as a very real possibility in a country that has such subpar access to mental health, that maybe you should do your due diligence to find out if the things that you were accusing a person of, if the reasons that you were sending them hate mail are actually true and valid before you hit that send button on the tweet that you have so hastily pinned. So what are some general takeaways so I can finally wrap this video up? Well, for one, we need to be a hell of a lot more charitable with people in our own movement. We need to do, in good faith, research to try to figure out if the people who are making accusations against these creators are acting in good faith or bad, whether they are informed or uninformed. Because in my opinion, a lot of the people who are acting in this are either acting in bad faith or uninformed. But that is just this humble fox's opinion. But furthermore, we need to extend a little bit of that charity to people even outside of our movement. Because right now, we aren't really much more than a leftist circle jerk. And it pains me to say that. But if we want to grow into an organized movement that can enact political change, that can get us to the ends that we all want to see put in action, we have to be able to do outreach. We have to be able to engage with other people. If we believe that our ideas are best, we need to be able to speak to people who don't agree with them. We need to be able to discuss with them rationally and calmly what we believe and why we believe that we are not only factually correct, but morally correct. We need to do it in a way that isn't condescending. And we need to realize that we may not always win. We may not always be able to change minds. But there is only one certainty here. And it is that if we do not try, we will fail. So with those thoughts in mind, I want to leave you at the end of this video thinking about this one thing. How can we grow our movement to the point where we can become effective? And is this type of drama posting really the way to do it? I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons, you folks, and your support. Just sheerly the fact that you were willing to give me money, even more than the fact that even though it isn't enough for me to make a living at yet, the mere fact that you're willing to give me any portion of your money is such a great motivator. When I am in a dark place, when I am feeling like I can't make it anymore, the fact that there are, at the moment that I'm recording this, 7 people that are willing to take money out of their paychecks when they aren't doing so incredibly well themselves in order to support me. That makes this worth doing. Also, this is not my only channel. I also have a channel on BitChute. I have a channel on Dailymotion. I have a channel on name of channel redacted because this website will get me fucking soft banned again if I mention it. But, you know, you can fill in the blanks. You're smart, folks. I also plan to, within this year, expand to Twitch, thanks to a generous opportunity that I've been granted by a Twitch creator, which we will get into more as the ink dries on that deal. And I also plan to get into podcasting within the coming months as well. But honestly, I have a lot going on in my life right now. I thank you for allowing me to pursue a line of work that gives me the time to put my house in order, because I don't know that I would be able to handle my life right now. I don't know that I would be able to go on if I was working a traditional 9 to 5.
Fox Talks.
I think that if you're engaged politically, as we are, as our work necessarily means we have chosen to be, you have the obligation, if you believe in the things that you're advocating, if you believe in the convictions that you hold, if you believe that the insights you have developed or the expertise you possess are things that are important for people to hear, I think you have the obligation to maximize the number of people with whom you're communicating rather than minimizing the number of people with whom you're communicating. And the idea that we should deliberately set about only to speak with those people who already agree with our worldview or ideology and avoid talking to anybody who thinks differently from us is insanity to me.
I wish when we got on Twitter we learned the names of new billionaires and where they lived and the kinds of things that they were up to and the ways that we could, like, interfere. Start putting some heat on them. Instead, Twitter's a fucking dumpster fire of people who want to speak for other non-binary people, like myself. Getting really loud because they've made a identity out of being a person who just makes demands on others. And it's like, it's not about Natalie. It's not about Contrapoints. Yeah, she's made a big difference and I'm fangirling. Yeah, totally. But guess what? It's also about the fact that you look stupid. You look mean, and it's hurtful for everybody. So, cut it out. Leave her the alone. Off.
I mean, I can more than imagine it because I've been there myself. And I'm still here because at those moments, I've been with good friends who took care of me. And by friends, I do mean Xanax. But I've also survived because there's a lot of people on the internet who'd be very entertained if I killed myself, and I simply refuse to give them the satisfaction. Oh no, bitch. I intend to live as long as possible out of sheer spite. I mean, who needs a guardian angel when you can make it through Christmas after Christmas on the fumes of total contempt? What I'm really trying to say is, Merry Christmas, you goddamn assholes. So, here's to not giving a